Another outage now at Newark Airport, and this is raising some more concerns about mounting air traffic control problems there and how they could cascade around the country. Phil LeBeau joins us with the latest. What's going on, Phil?
You know, Andrew, the ground stop yesterday was because there were communications issues, and while they were going for making sure that those were 100% as they should be, they wanted to get the redundant systems up, they decided just bring the flights down. Let's not sit here and risk any issues here. So here's where things stand regarding the Newark Airport and the attempts to get it fixed as quickly as possible. The FAA and airlines, they will be meeting on Wednesday. The subject matter, reducing daily flights. There are about 475, 480 daily flights. What level do they bring it down to where they feel they're comfortable that they won't have to constantly delay flights or ground stops? 2 official tech outages since April 28th. There was one on the 28th, and then there was one back on Friday. Yesterday, the ground stop, not technically an outage, doesn't matter to the people who were there. The hundreds who were delayed, for their purposes, it was an outage because the communication issues led them to do a ground stop. Cancellations in and out of Newark Airport yesterday, 86 flights. That's about 15% of their daily flights. And then in terms of delayed flights, 282. And we're not just talking 5-10-minute delays. We're talking lengthy delays, which is infuriating for the people who are flying out of Newark Airport. Here is the Secretary of Transportation talking on Meet the Press yesterday about the near and longer term attempts to fix Newark.
In the next several weeks, we're going to have this reduced capacity at Newark. I'm convening a meeting of all the airlines that serve Newark, get them to agree on how they're going to reduce the capacity. So you book, you fly. We are building a new line that goes directly from Newark to the Philly TRACON, which controls the New York airspace. What happens now is it goes from Newark to N90, which is where it used to be controlled, and then down to Philly. That doesn't make sense. We're going to have a direct line there.
When will that be completed?
So, listen, it's a long distance, so we think by the end of this summer it should be completed.
United Airlines has the most exposure in terms of flights in and out of Newark Airport. It has already cut down its flights by 35 per day. But they're going to likely have to come down even further. Scott Kirby has said New York flights for all airlines should be capped. We've talked about this before, guys. There is not slot restrictions in terms of flights. It's sort of an honor system, if you will. And what you're going to see on the meeting on Wednesday is a stronger agreement in terms of how many flights for airlines and how many for the airport overall should be instituted immediately until this can get resolved.
Hey, Phil, I have 2 questions, both completely selfish, but hopefully they will help the public understand what's going on. For those folks who have reservations out of Newark over the summer, over the next 6 months, would you change them right now?
Depends on what the flight is. You know, I'm flying out of Newark when I'm going to the Paris Air Show. I'm sticking with that flight right now. But if you are flying in and out of Newark, let's say from Chicago into New York, and you can go into LaGuardia or into JFK, I've told my friends, sure, if you can, go somewhere else. Why risk it?
Well, how big of a problem is that for United? I mean, this is a situation where this is basically OPEC, and United is Saudi Arabia, and they're going to have to take bear the brunt of most of these cuts. I mean, I'm booking elsewhere, too. I'm booking a flight for this week. I went out of LaGuardia instead of Newark, even though I've been trying to get back to my 1K
You're not alone.
This year.
You're not alone. And look, it's a challenge for United. It's their 3rd busiest hub. They would rather not have to cut back flights there. But the alternative, it's not working. It's not working at all. Because if you're keeping these flights and then canceling, then you run into people who are saying, well, I wouldn't have done that. Why didn't you know further in advance, United Airlines or any airline going into Newark? So as a result, it's not optimal. So, I mean, and I know I'm understating that, saying it's not optimal.
And Phil, let me just ask you just about the safety question, because I think that is something that persists. Despite what folks have said, when you hear or you read that there are moments, even 30 seconds, where somehow the controllers can't actually communicate with the pilots, that to me, just by default, is something that I would imagine would be deeply concerning, especially when people are trying to land, when people are trying to take off. There's obviously lots of traffic in the skies above the New York and New Jersey area to begin with. What do you think of that as somebody who's covered this industry as long as you have?
It's horrific. If you are flying, you want to know that there is constant communication, that it's happening instantaneously. And even if it's 30 seconds, and yes, the odds are that your plane is going to have an issue with another aircraft within those 30 seconds? Odds are no. But you don't want to risk that at all. It's also infuriating to me, Andrew, that we've known about this for decades. This is not like something that just came up and people were like, oh, how did this happen? We've known about it for decades. And yet this government, the United States government, Congress, they have kicked the can down the street time and again. And now you have the Secretary of Transportation saying, okay, once and for all, let's fix it. And what he wants is authorization. You give him the money, he will bid it out, and they do it all at one time. Not this piecemeal appropriations committee. Come back to us and tell us when you need more money. I think that's the most infuriating part of this. You've known this was an issue.
Can you help me with two pieces of this? And I ask out of ignorance, so I apologize if I didn't know this. This idea of outages in the sky where the control towers can't communicate with the planes for 30 seconds, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever it is, that's been going on for years?
To what extent, we don't know. I've not seen an audit done in terms of how often these types of glitches or outages have happened. So, Andrew, I can't answer your question authoritatively and say, look, it's been happening, every couple of months over the last couple of years. But, look, what's happening right now is you have the air traffic control. They're bringing that aircraft into the airport. The takeoff and landing is the most critical part. When you're up at 35,000, rarely do you have an issue with an aircraft. It's the takeoff and landing that is the most critical part. And that's why the lack of communication, even for 30 seconds, is completely unacceptable.
And Phil, can you just then explain in terms of just finally whatever backup, redundancy, or otherwise the systems that they put in place over the summer? Now, I know they wanted to build out things, obviously, for the entire network across the country.
Longer
they want
term,
all the money appropriated. As I imagine, as a taxpayer, I think we should all hope this gets fixed and gets fixed in the right way. But what is it exactly that they can do to create a backup system that doesn't exist today? What does that look like? I don't think I fully understand.
So
it.
there's a number of different issues. Let's take the ground stop yesterday. It was a communication issue that they were having. Not that they lost communication with the aircraft, but it was not as crisp and clear as the air traffic controllers would like. They immediately said, we're not comfortable with this. Therefore, they did a ground stop, and they wanted to make sure that the redundant system, the backup system, was working. So they're doing exactly what they should be doing. It's not like the air traffic controllers are asleep at the wheel and going, I guess, I'm not really sure if I'm communicating. So what you're going to see is, in terms of the communications, A, make sure the most up-to-date equipment is in place and working, and B, have the backup system there. And then you heard the Secretary of Transportation talk about the fiber line. Right now, it's copper in terms of communication from the airport to the N90 to Tracon. Why it's still copper, who knows? And it's going to be a fiber line by the end of the summer.